watching the News at 6 with me, Ishan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling you in them over the next 15 minutes. But first, the headlines we're tracking right now. Rajya Sabha clears companies' amendments Bill 2014. Legislation is expected to improve ease of doing business and check fraudulent companies. Cabinet approves bill to curb generation of black money. Benami transaction prohibition bill will seek to curb illegal property in real estate. Supreme Court bans use of photos of politicians in government ads, says only images of President, Prime Minister and Chief Justice can be used with its approval. And gunmen sprayed bullets in a packed bus in Karachi, kill at least 43 Shiite Muslims. Splinter group of Pakistan Taliban claims responsibility. And the death toll in Nepal's earthquake tragedy goes up to 83. US aid helicopter goes missing as well. Our top story this evening, the Rajya Sabha was adjourned sine die today. Earlier in the day, the House unanimously passed the Companies Amendments Bill 2014. Corporate Affairs Minister Arun Jaitley said the new bill will improve ease of doing business in India and serve as a deterrent to fraudulent companies. He also conceded the demand to form a panel to spot discrepancies in the new act.
The Companies Amendment Bill 2014 that seeks to remove some oppressive provisions in the Companies Act 2013 secured Rajya Sabha's nod on Wednesday. Corporate Affairs Minister Arun Jaitley welcomed the amendments that he said will foster investment climate. He also informed that a committee will soon review it to plug likely loopholes.
That the act is so wide that even these 15-16 amendments may not cover the entire field. A broad-based committee to continue to go into this whole question for the next few months as to where the shoe pinches as far as this act is concerned.
Initiating the discussion on the bill, Congress MP K. Rahman Khan urged the government to reconsider a few contentious provisions. The Samajwadi Party's Naresh Agarwal and Naresh Gujral of Shiromani Akali Dal urged the government to form a committee to scrutinize inconsistencies.
The proposed amendment should also require to disclose details of fraud reported to the government which are more serious. In the board report, so that the board report should also contain whatever the auditor's report, it should also contain in the board report.
आप 6 महीने के लिए कोई कमेटी बनाइए, इससे ज्यादा न बनाइए. वो कमेटी सब लोगों से राय ले ले, लोग अपने सजेशन दे दें और उस सजेशन को 6 महीने के अंदर आपको रिपोर्ट दे दे. और उस रिपोर्ट के बाद अगर आप पूर्ण रूप से कंपनी लॉ में अमेंडमेंट करके लाएं, तो शायद सफलता भी मिलेगी और लोग इसको स्वीकार करेंगे.
But I think the existing act is extremely cumbersome and it needs huge amendments. So I would again recommend that a committee be set up, whether it's a joint committee of the parliament or a committee set up by the finance minister, but we must relook at this act.
The Companies Amendment Bill 2014 introduces certain amendments in relation to related party transactions, fraud reporting by auditors, and jurisdiction of special courts to try certain offences. Companies failing to refund deposit and interests could be fined 1 crore to 10 crore rupees. Defaulting officers may be fined 25 lakh to 2 crore rupees and jailed for up to 7 years. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, the Cabinet today, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, approved the new Benami Transaction Prohibition Bill that aims at curbing generation of domestic black money. The bill provides for prosecution and confiscation of Benami properties and also a fine with imprisonment, especially in real estate. The government had in February announced it would come out with a new and more comprehensive Benami Transactions Prohibition Bill. The present bill seeks to improve on the Benami Transactions Prohibition Act that was earlier enacted in 1988. On to some international news now, and gunmen on motorcycles shot dead at least 43 people travelling on a bus in Pakistan. The killings were the latest in a series of terror attacks targeting minorities. A splinter group of the Pakistani Taliban claimed responsibility for the killings, even as Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has ordered an investigation into the matter.
A brazen assault in Karachi city. Terrorists targeting religious minorities once again in Pakistan. 6 gunmen shot dead at least 43 Shiite Muslims travelling in a bus. Over 20 people were reportedly injured. Police said the victims were on their way to an Ismaili Shia place of worship.
औरतें और नौजवान ज्यादा थे उसके अंदर और तकरीबन जब हम गए तो फिर अंदर देखा तो बड़े लाशें थी उसके अंदर और वो वहाँ खड़े करके जो ड्राइवर था वो वहाँ से जा चुका था वो जो बाद में पता चला कि वो किसी G17 का मिनी बस का ड्राइवर था जो छोड़ के यहाँ पे चला गया ना।
9mm है, SMGs हैं और दूसरे मुख्तलिफ वेपन्स हैं, अंदर जाके मारा गया, बाहर से फायर नहीं हुए। जो हमने अभी तक बस को जो मुशाहिदा किया है वो अंदर से ही जाके उन्होंने फायरिंग की।
Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif ordered an investigation into the incident. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also extended condolences and condemned the attack. Jandullah, a splinter group of Pakistani Taliban, claimed responsibility for the killings. They have threatened more such attacks against Ismailis, Shias and Christians.
होल मिले हैं मुख्तलिफ वेपन्स के, मल्टीपल वेपन्स है, कोई किसी एक वेपन से फायरिंग नहीं की गई है और यहाँ मौके से क्राइम सीन से भी अभी एक झाड़ियों से खोल मिला है। तो अभी फिलहाल हम फॉरेंसिक्स के लिए और क्राइम सीन के हवाले से काम कर रहे हैं।
Minorities have been targeted in Pakistan over and again. The Taliban spokesperson said they carried out the attacks because they considered the victims kafir or non-Muslim. Just 2 months earlier in March, the Taliban targeted 2 churches in Lahore, killing 14 people, indicating how vulnerable minorities are in the country. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And we're joined by Rizal Hassan Laskar, a news coordinator of Hindustan Times. He's somebody who spent a lot of time reporting out of Pakistan, was there for some time and is here with us right now to help us understand the situation. As far as the minorities in Pakistan are concerned, Rizal, they I'm sure would be feeling really unsafe, but then this has been a trend, targeted killings like this have been a trend in Pakistan for some time now.
Well, you know, especially the Shia minority in Pakistan has been the focus of a lot of very, very brazen attacks. And the most worrying thing is now that these attacks are shifting towards Sindh, which hadn't seen such attacks in the past. In January, there was an attack on a Shia Imam Barga, which killed almost 60 people. Today's attack, again, very, very brazen, right in the heart of Karachi. And this is the financial hub of Pakistan. This is supposed to be a city where the military carried out an operation recently to get rid of criminal and militant elements. So, I mean, this is, again, a demonstration by the Taliban that they can strike almost at will. To walk into a bus and brazenly just gun down 43 people in this manner. It is a very shocking reflection of the status of minorities in Pakistan today.
All right, but if you talk about the Pakistani establishment, I mean, incidents like these happen time and again in that particular country now. So as far as the Pakistan government's war on terror is concerned, after that horrific killing of school children, there was visibly at least a lot of action that was happening. But it seems that kind of a deterrence is not working, or is it just pushing militants into a corner and making them take more desperate measures?
Well, I think, I mean, that attack on the school in Peshawar triggered a lot of outpouring of grief, and there were a lot of promises from the civilian and the military leadership about action. And we had Nawaz Sharif, the Prime Minister, talking about no more making a distinction between good and bad militants. But I think on the ground that really hasn't happened. I mean, there have been some operations in the tribal areas, but, the fact remains that some of the biggest groups are now based in the Punjab province, and there has been growing evidence in the last few years about the Taliban entering Karachi. And we haven't had, a very, very sustained operation against these militant groups, either in Punjab or in Sindh province. Now, the worrying factor is these two provinces, if they also get, kind of subsumed by militant activity, it becomes worrying for India because both share borders with India, Sindh and Punjab. So this is definitely something that I think Indian security planners will be looking at closely. And unfortunately, I think the Pakistani government hasn't really delivered on its messaging about, making no distinction between good and bad militants.
Where's the country headed from here? Result that would be, I mean, from across the border, we can only observe and we can comment. But in terms of just animosity and trust between communities, you talked about the minorities who would be feeling very unsafe right now. But from here on, do we see the communities coming together? What about people-to-people contact, or is it becoming further fractured, the society there?
Unfortunately, I think this is a $64 million question. I mean, there seems to be absolutely no respite for, either the minorities or the liberals. I mean, we had just recently one of the most liberal voices in Karachi, Sabine Mahmood, who was gunned down just after she organized a talk on Balochistan. And, things are actually going from bad to worse for minorities and liberals. So it spells for more trouble for India, because the more divisions you have in Pakistan, the more difficult it's going to be to deal with Pakistan. The government is right now focused on these issues. We haven't had much bilateral interaction for quite some time.
Right.
So it's going to be a very, very tricky situation, especially when you also juxtapose the troop pullout from Afghanistan, which is happening right now.
All right, so indeed, Pakistan could be the new flashpoint in South Asia if things continue like this. But Rizal Laskar, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand this issue a little better. Well, moving on now, the Supreme Court today ruled that only photographs of the President, Prime Minister and Chief Justice of India should feature in government ads. The court ruled that even pictures of these three dignitaries should be used only with its approval.
In a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court on Wednesday struck at what it called promotion of personality cults through advertisements. The top court prohibited use of photographs of political leaders, including ministers, in government advertisements.
Supreme Court today, while allowing two important public interest petitions filed by the Center for Public Interest Litigation and Common Cause, has directed that government advertisements cannot be used to project political personalities or to derive any political advantage from the use of those advertisements which are issued on government funds, on public funds.
In February, the centre had argued in court that the Supreme Court should not interfere with how the government communicates with the public. It also said the court was in danger of pre-censorship.
अच्छी बात है, ये तो एडवर्टाइजमेंट ही कम होनी चाहिए। मैं तो ये कहता हूँ सरकारी गैर सरकारी नहीं, बात ये है कि करोड़ों रुपया लगता है इस पे, इतनी ऐड की कोई जरूरत नहीं होती।
We are living in a political world, and I think it is well within the right of a government to project what it does by showing photographs of ministers and others. It gives a very clear impression as to who is pioneering a particular intervention or an initiative. And then it is left for the people to decide whether, if they like their intervention, should they support their government, and if they don't, should they oppose it. So I don't think the Supreme Court should really interfere in just about anything they want.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट का ये कहना है, तो सरकार ने फिर एक बार सुप्रीम कोर्ट के पास जाना चाहिए और बताना चाहिए ये क्यों जरूरी है। किसी एक मंत्री का फोटो आने से मुझे लगता है कि कोई पहाड़ नहीं टूटता।
The court refused to pass order restraining the government from giving ads 6 months prior to elections. It directed the centre to appoint a 3-member committee to oversee that public money is not misused by the government in giving advertisements. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Thousands of people spent a fearful night outdoors in Nepal. The second massive earthquake that struck the country yesterday killed at least 83 people till now, and over 2,000 have been injured. Rescue helicopters have been sent to the worst affected areas to help those in need.
A day after multiple earthquakes, Kathmandu residents assessed the damage and narrated horror stories of the tremors that killed at least dozens of people on Tuesday.
त्यतिखेर चाहिँ अचानक आएपछि भाग्न भ्याएन, 3 जना जति बच्चा भाग्न भ्याएन। एकजना त्यही सँगै खेल्ने साथीले चाहिँ 2 जना भित्रै छ भन्थ्यो, अनि एकजना चाहिँ निकाल्नु भ्यायो, निकाल्यो पनि जिउँदै निकाल्यो, अब एकजना अझै छ भन्ने कुरा छ।
The earthquake brought down buildings already weakened by the devastating quake on April 25th. Among them was Narayan Prasad's Bedi's house.
हिजो आएको भैँचालोले चाहिँ तसनस हुने गरी नै ढल्यो। अब धेरै दुःख लाग्दो कुरा छ। अब मैले के भन्नु, त्यो भन्न बोल्न सक्ने क्षमता पनि छैन। घाँस बाँस कबास केही पनि छैन। दुःखै पर्यो।
Scores of people with injuries and fractures were admitted to a hospital in Kathmandu where a sense of panic was triggered after the strong quake. Most of the casualties were in villages and towns east of Kathmandu.
So till today morning 6 o'clock we have had around 99 patients and out of them 39 have been already discharged. So we are having around 60 patients who are still admitted.
Meanwhile, ahead of the impending monsoon months, scientists are worrying that torrential rains could trigger landslides. After losing their home in Tuesday's 7.3 magnitude earthquake, Ishwar Paudel and his family are living in a small makeshift settlement along the landslide-prone area near the village of Jur. The earthquakes have forced people living in Nepal's mountains to come into terms with the risks of landslides and floods. The shifting weather patterns and increased threat of meltwater from thawing glaciers has only imparting a greater urgency to those fears. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, that's all from us. Goodbye.